Imagine this, by 2028, tech giants are set to pour $1 trillion into AI infrastructure. That's a number so massive it could reshape economies overnight. But here's the kicker, you're chasing the wrong part of the story. You're fixated on the flashy AI stocks hitting all-time highs, blind to where the real money is flowing. What if that blindness is the very reason you'll never break into true wealth? Stick around, because in the next few minutes we're peeling back the layers of this illusion, and by the end you'll see exactly why it's costing you everything. But first, let's dive into why so many smart people fall into this trap. Picture yourself in a crowded room, everyone buzzing about the next big AI breakthrough. Chatbots that think like humans, robots revolutionizing factories. It's exhilarating. Yet while you're glued to those headlines, something huge is happening behind the scenes. That $1 trillion isn't vanishing into software code or virtual algorithms. No, it's flooding into the unglamorous backbone, massive data centers, sprawling server farms, and the power grids that keep them alive. We're talking billions rerouted to build out energy infrastructure that no one's talking about at cocktail parties. And you're left holding the bag on overhyped stocks that might look invincible today but could crumble under their own weight. This isn't just a market quirk, it's a psychological blind spot we all share. Call it AI blindness, the tendency to get swept up in the narrative of innovation without spotting the actual paths where capital is building lasting value. Think back to the dot-com era in the early 2000s. Remember the frenzy? Pets.com, Webvan, companies promising to change the world backed by sky-high valuations. Investors piled in, driven by that electric fear of missing out, only to watch it all evaporate when the bubble burst. Billions wiped out because people chased the dream, not the reality. Fast forward to today, and history feels eerily familiar. AI is the new .com, with valuations soaring on promises alone. But are you feeling that pull right now? That urge to jump in because everyone else is? If so, pause and ask yourself, what am I really seeing here? Let's break it down further. In 2024 alone, capital expenditures on AI have already surpassed $200 billion, and that's just the tip. The bulk, around 70% of that trillion-dollar projection, is earmarked for physical assets, not the sleek apps or neural networks, but the concrete and steel necessities. Cooling systems for servers that guzzle more electricity than small countries, transmission lines to handle the surge in demand, and renewable energy setups to power it all without blacking out cities. Why does this matter? Because while the media blasts stories of AI unicorns, the smart observers, the ones quietly amassing wealth, are tracing those money flows. They're not dazzled by the spotlight, they're investing their attention where the leverage truly lies. Now consider the emotional side of this. Fear of missing out, or FOMO as it's known, isn't just a buzzword, it's a wired response in our brains. Neuroscientists have shown it lights up the same reward centers as winning a gamble. So when Nvidia's stock jumps another 10% on some earnings whisper, your pulse quickens and suddenly due diligence feels like a buzzkill. But here's a question to let sink in. What if that rush is exactly what's keeping you stuck in the middle class? Every time you react to the hype, you're reinforcing a pattern that favors the storytellers over the builders. And as we peel this back, you'll start to see how this blindness isn't accidental. It's engineered by the very system designed to keep most of us chasing shadows. But why does this pattern repeat? Let's zoom in on the mechanics. Imagine the AI ecosystem as a massive machine. The visible parts, the user-facing tech like ChatGPT or autonomous vehicles, grab all the headlines. Yet, without the hidden gears, it grinds to a halt. Those gears are the infrastructure, data centers that need gigawatts of power, supply chains for rare earth minerals and chips, and regulatory approvals that could take years. Tech behemoths like Amazon and Microsoft aren't skimping here. They're committing tens of billions annually to these builds. In fact, recent reports show energy demands from AI could double global electricity consumption by decade's end. That's not hyperbole. It's from industry forecasts that underscore how this shift is redefining scarcity. Yet the paradox hits hard. The more buzz around AI's transformative power, the more investors overlook these foundational shifts. Take a moment. Do you track where corporate capex is really going, or do you rely on TikTok tips and CNBC soundbites? If it's the latter, you're in good company. Surveys indicate over 80% of retail investors make decisions based on short-term news cycles. But those cycles are built to amplify noise, not signal. As inflation ticks along at nearly 3% officially, and likely higher in real terms for everyday costs, this misalignment grows. Your savings erode quietly while opportunities in resilient sectors slip away unnoticed. It's like being at a poker table where everyone folds on the river, but you're still betting on the flop. This leads us to a deeper layer, how AI blindness amplifies inequality. The top players, those with access to proprietary data and long-term visions, aren't scrambling for retail-traded stocks. They're positioning around the bottlenecks, the choke points where demand outstrips supply. Energy infrastructure, for instance, faces unprecedented strain. Blackouts in tech hubs like Virginia, home to many data centers, are already becoming news. And as these pressures mount, the gap widens. The wealthiest 1% have historically thrived by owning the pipes, not the content flowing through them. Think oil barons in the 20th century or railroad magnates before that. Today, it's the unseen networks powering the digital age. Are you starting to sense the disconnect? The system rewards pattern recognition, not trend chasing, and right now, the patterns point to a reconfiguration that's just beginning. Let's make this personal with a story that might hit close to home. Meet Alex, a mid-level manager in in tech sales, much like so many watching this. In early 2023, Alex heard the AI hype everywhere, from podcasts to water cooler chats. Excited, he shifted a chunk of his portfolio into big-name AI plays, riding the wave as stocks doubled. Fast forward 6 months, a market correction hits, whispers of overvaluation spread, and Alex watches 30% vanish. Why? He didn't dig into the Capex report, showing that for every dollar in AI revenue, currently around $20 billion annually, $5 are spent on infrastructure without immediate payback. Alex's mistake wasn't greed, it was tunnel vision, focusing on the sizzle while ignoring the stake. Sound familiar? If you've ever second-guessed a trade after the fact, this is your wake-up. Patterns like Alex's aren't isolated. Behavioral finance experts point out that humans are wired for recency bias. We overweight recent events and underplay structural shifts. In AI's case, the narrative of infinite growth overshadows the math. Projections suggest 95% of AI initiatives could fail to deliver expected returns, much like enterprise software flops in the past. Yet, the infrastructure bet is different. It's defensive, scalable, and tied to inevitable demand. As we approach the trillion-dollar milestone, questions arise. What if the real winners aren't the coders, but the enablers? And more crucially, how long can you afford to stay blind to this? This brings us to the heart of it all, the reason this blindness stings so much. You're not undeserving of wealth because of bad luck or lack of smarts. It's because the default mindset in our hyper-connected world funnels us toward visible spectacles, away from the quiet accumulations that build empires. That $1 trillion is a force multiplier for those who see the full picture. How AI's energy hunger could spike utility costs by 15% for households, how supply chain snarls in semiconductors create moats for incumbents, and how regulatory scrutiny might cap the hype while boosting the basics. The shock here is realizing that 70% of that capital flow bypasses the stocks you're eyeing, heading straight to assets that weather storms. Feel that twist in your gut? It's the realization that what seems like opportunity is often a mirage. The system, media, algorithms, even social feeds is optimized for engagement, not enlightenment. Every click on an AI success story reinforces the loop, pulling you deeper into FOMO while the real reconfiguration happens off-screen. But here's the turning point. Awareness is the antidote. By questioning your blind spots, you start to rewire your approach. Imagine shifting from reactive bets to thoughtful observation of capital flows. Suddenly, the noise fades and clarity emerges. This isn't about overnight riches, it's about aligning with forces already in motion. As we wrap up the build-up, consider this. In every major tech wave, from the internet boom to blockchain, the fortunes went to those who controlled the rails, not the trains. AI is no different. The blindness keeps most of us as passengers, while a few steer the course. But you can change that script. Let's close the loop we opened at the start. That trillion-dollar pour isn't your enemy, it's your signal. If you've been chasing shadows, it's time to step into the light. What blind spot is holding you back right now? Drop it in the comments below. Let's spark a debate. If this hit home, smash that like button, subscribe for more unfiltered takes on wealth psychology, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one on why saving cash is quietly eroding your future. Your move. What will you see differently today? Let's pick up right where that nagging doubt leaves you hanging, deep in the mechanics of why this AI frenzy feels so seductive yet so slippery. You've seen the headlines. AI is going to add trillions to the global economy, they say, and everyone's piling in. But stop for a second and really think about the undercurrents. What happens when the spotlight fades from the flashy demos and we look at the raw demands? Data centers aren't just buildings, they're voracious beasts, each one consuming as much power as a mid-sized city. Forecasts from places like the International Energy Agency paint a stark picture. AI could drive up electricity needs by up to 10% worldwide in the coming years, putting pressure on everything from household bills to national grids. And while that's unfolding, the conversation stays stuck on the tech wizards, not the engineers keeping the lights on. This oversight isn't harmless, it's a multiplier for everyday frustrations. Imagine your monthly utility statement creeping higher, not because of some abstract policy, but because those server farms down the road are humming 24/7. In regions like Texas or California, where data hubs cluster, residents are already noticing the pinch, with rates edging up amid the boom. It's a ripple effect. Higher costs squeeze consumer spending, which in turn slows the broader economy. Yet, in the investor echo chamber, this gets glossed over. People fixate on quarterly earnings beats, missing how these foundational strains could cap the entire AI trajectory. Does that make you wonder if the growth story is as straightforward as it seems? Because if the infrastructure buckles under the weight, the whole narrative shifts, and fast. Shifting gears a bit, let's explore how this plays out in real-world decisions. Take the average person juggling a 9-to-5 and a side hustle in investing apps. You're bombarded with alerts. AI stock up 5%. It triggers that instinctive grab, the one rooted in stories of overnight successes from Silicon Valley garages. But dig a layer deeper, and you find the pros, family offices, hedge funds, aren't playing the same game. They're mapping out the entire value chain, from the miners extracting lithium for batteries to the utilities expanding capacity. A report from McKinsey highlights this. By 2030, the AI infrastructure spend could rival the build-out of the US interstate highway system in scale. That's not small potatoes, it's a generational pivot, and if you're not attuned to it, you're essentially betting against the tide, reacting to waves instead of the ocean itself. Now, to keep things grounded, consider the human element that makes this so relatable. We all have that friend or colleague who's all in on the latest tech darling, posting gains on social media like badges of honor. It's inspiring at first, but then comes the quiet admission over coffee. I didn't see the pullback coming. That's the crux. Our brains love patterns that confirm what we want to believe, a concept psychologists call confirmation bias. In AI's world, it means latching onto success tales while dismissing warnings about overcapacity or regulatory hurdles. The EU's already drafting rules on energy use for tech, and similar moves in the US could follow. These aren't buzzkills, they're signposts to where sustainability meets profitability. Ask yourself, are you building your view on full context or just the exciting bits? As we build toward the core revelation, let's layer in some perspective from past cycles. The smartphone revolution in the 2010s seemed magical too. Apps changing lives, stocks like Apple exploding, but the real windfalls went to the component makers, the chip foundries, and the logistics networks that made it scalable. AI mirrors that. The software grabs the glory, but the hardware and power underpin it all. Recent data from Bloomberg NEF shows renewable energy investments surging to meet AI's appetite, with solar and wind projects accelerating in data center hotspots. This isn't speculation, it's response to necessity. If the hype cycle peaks without addressing these realities, corrections follow. Think 2022's tech rout, amplified by rising rates and supply woes. The lesson? Visibility matters, but depth wins. Feeling the tension mount? Good, because we're approaching the point where it all converges. This blindness to infrastructure isn't just an individual slip, it's symptomatic of a broader cultural tilt toward immediacy. In a world of 15-second reels and instant gratification, long-term builds like grid expansions feel boring by comparison, yet they're the anchors. The trillion-dollar figure we started with, it's projected across reports from Goldman Sachs and others, broken down into phases. Initial surges in construction, then maintenance and upgrades. Each phase creates dependencies that the unwary overlook. What if embracing this full of you transformed how you navigate uncertainty, turning potential pitfalls into informed footing? Let's humanize it further with another angle. Your daily life intertwined with these forces. That commute app powered by AI, it relies on cloud servers drawing megawatts. Your smart home devices, same story. As adoption grows, so does the load, prompting utilities to rethink everything from pricing to partnerships. In the UK, for instance, National Grid is forecasting AI-related demands that could strain aging infrastructure, leading to calls for massive upgrades. Across the pond in Canada, provinces like Ontario are seeing similar debates around hydro resources. These aren't distant issues, they touch your wallet, your reliability, and ultimately your sense of control. If you're tuned only to the upside narratives, how prepared are you for the trade-offs? Pushing deeper, the emotional underbelly emerges. Frustration when the sure thing falters, doubt creeping in about your judgment. It's universal. I've talked to countless folks who ride the emotional roller coaster of market swings, only to realize hindsight reveals the misses. Behavioral studies from places like Yale's finance program show that over 70% of investors underperform benchmarks due to timing errors driven by sentiment. In AI, that sentiment is supercharged by venture capital tales of unicorns. But counter that with the quiet math. Revenue from AI applications lags far behind the spend, creating a gap that infrastructure must bridge. Bridging it requires seeing beyond the veil, recognizing that true leverage comes from understanding interdependencies. Now imagine flipping the script. What would it look like to approach this with curiosity rather than compulsion? Start questioning the sources. Who benefits from the hype amplification? Media outlets thrive on clicks, analysts on bold calls. But the sustainable edge goes to those dissecting reports, like the EIA's annual outlooks on energy trends. These paint AI not as a standalone boom, but as a catalyst straining existing systems, pushing innovations in storage and transmission that could redefine sectors. For audiences in the US, think of how this echoes the shale revolution, where overlooked midstream assets outperformed upstream flash. In the UK and Canada, it's akin to the North Sea oil days. The fields got attention, but pipelines built legacies. As we near the climax, hold on to this thread. The blindness persists because it's comfortable. Challenging it means confronting discomfort, the possibility that your portfolio, your habits, even your worldview might need recalibration. But that's where growth hides. The trillion-dollar influx isn't a zero-sum game. It's an invitation to realign with emerging realities. Energy transitions, supply resilience, these are the threads weaving the next decade's fabric. And if you miss them, the cost compounds, from missed insights to mounting opportunity gaps. Here's where it peaks. That initial hook about the $1 trillion flowing unseen is the key to unlocking why so many feel stuck despite their efforts. The AI story captivates because it promises disruption, but the real disruption is in the foundations being laid right now. By tuning into these flows, the power surges, the build-outs, the constraints, you gain a lens that cuts through the fog. It's not about predicting every twist, it's about positioning your mindset to adapt. That shift alone can redefine your trajectory trajectory, turning passive observation into active foresight. Wrapping this up, remember the open loop we started with, the massive spend that's reshaping everything under the radar. We've traced it from hype to hidden gears, from emotional pulls to structural truths. Now it's your turn to close it. What part of this AI landscape have you been overlooking in your own life? Share in the comments. Let's get the conversation going and challenge each other's views. If these insights spark something, hit like, subscribe for weekly dives into wealth mindsets, and bell up so you're first in line for the next. How inflation is stealthily undermining your hard-earned cash. Thanks for sticking through. See you in the next one.